Hey guys, welcome back to the Grid Sisters podcast. I'm Tess.
And I'm Lauren.
And we're the Grid Sisters. Today we're talking everything Singapore.
The Singapore Grand Prix.
What language do they speak in Singapore? Mandarin, Malay. For the energy that we need for this podcast, I have a Rockstar. Normally I have a Red Bull, but I'm on a Rockstar kick right now. It's fruit punch flavor, but here you go for your satisfaction. Is that good?
That was a good pop. Ni hao, everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast. Like Tess said, we are going over the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yep.
I feel like so much happened this weekend. I have new gray hair from everything that occurred in this race.
I just need everyone to know I couldn't decide if the race was boring or interesting like halfway through. I was like, am I excited about this race, or is this going to be like Max won? Like, I couldn't tell. And then Lewis hit the wall, Max spun, everything crazy happened, and I was like, this got really crazy.
I feel like this race was like Murphy's Law. Everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong.
Yeah.
And so I was just sitting there and I'm like, I'm not biting my nails, but I'm also like, they would come off a safety car and I was like, okay, how long till something else happens?
Well, listen, like there's a couple things. Number one, Gotifi is doing his only job. He is
bringing out the safety
car. And also, obviously, like I understand for safety when they delay the start and stuff, but like, why do we have wet tires? Like, why do they exist? Listen, if we aren't ever going to race in a race where we need wet tires, why do they exist?
My thought process is if they haven't started the race yet, they're going to delay the start, especially with Singapore, because Singapore is like so tight and slippery. There's not like a lot of runoff areas. Mm-hmm. So yeah. But if mid-race it starts pouring rain, they're gonna throw on some wets. I am gonna say though, that rain that was coming down in Singapore, I don't know if anybody saw it. It was like tropical storms, like what we get here in St. Martin. It was pouring, literally like torrential downpour. They said, "Would you like a monsoon to go with that Grand Prix?"
Yeah, that's actually.
Night race with a side of flooding? Question mark?
No. And you know what? We saw that with everyone not even be able to turn their car and going straight into the wall. Okay. So we saw it.
So you know what? It made for an interesting race. Now, let's just dive right into podium points, because if you've watched the race this weekend, we will get into race weekend recap, but let's go into podium points because so much happened.
Yeah, so mine are like a little bit random. Well, my number 3 is kind of random. This picture almost brought me to tears. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this moment so much. This is so cute. There was a picture of Charlotte and Charles kissing over the gate after he got second. And I could literally cry right now thinking about it. It's so cute and wholesome and sweet. And so that's my number 3, because it's just so like it makes them feel so real, like that they're just like, oh my gosh, I just like need to go give my girlfriend a kiss. I'm so happy I got second. It's been rough. Like, I love it so much. I know. My number 2 is Checo taking another win. So I was having this conversation with our dad.
Who is a massive Checo Perez fan, by the way. If he's okay with
my gosh,
on the YouTube version of this, I will put the photo he sent to our Race Talk group chat yesterday of him in a limited edition Checo polo, which I did send him, and a Checo hat.
And like, I even pointed out to him, he was wearing it. We went to breakfast and he was wearing it. And I was like, I was like, oh my gosh, that shirt actually looks really great with the Red Bull hat, because the Red Bull Checo hat on like the trim of the brim, it has the Mexican flag.
Mm-hmm. That's how you can tell who they're supporting for Red Bull, because they have the Mexican flag and they also on the Max hats have the Netherlands flag.
Mm-hmm. The Checo win. Yeah, I was having the conversation with our dad, and he basically was like, how many people actually win more than one race in a season? And I was like, besides the championship leader or the person in second, not that many.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, that just like is so cool to me. And I'm like, yeah, it's super cool that Checo has won too, especially because he's had a like kind of rough last couple of like races. Yeah. But also I think it was one of those things where it's like, guys, like I'm still a Red Bull racer. I'm a driver for Red Bull, and like I deserve to be here.
I think Checo's gotten some pretty unnecessary hate over the past couple weeks.
Definitely.
I think sometimes people forget that this is literally one of the highest performing sports, especially in motorsport. And to be consistently at the top of your game sometimes isn't enough when the other people at the top of their game are Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Like sometimes your best isn't going to be enough. That doesn't mean that you're terrible at what you do. It just means that sometimes your best wasn't enough.
Yeah.
But also, I think some people just have off weeks. Sometimes a circuit doesn't suit your driving style. Like,
oh my gosh, Checo on a street circuit.
Checo loves a street circuit. Oh, I'm excited
for the end of the season where we get a couple more and we get Checo out there. But also his over the line radio was so sweet to me, where he says, this is the Mexican way. I'm like, literally, everyone needs to stop, because
I was like,
after my number one, I'm gonna cry.
It was
because
so
my number
too. One of his race engineers, I think, is Mexican, and he was standing there. He was holding the Mexican flag up so high. They handed him one. I'm like, this is.
I didn't wear waterproof mascara. You have to stop. So this kind of leads into my number one, because after this result, everything else was too much for me.
Okay.
Lando in P4, Daniel in P5.
A good result for McLaren.
It was such a good McLaren weekend. And I just have to tell you, like, Lando being like on his radio, he's like, yay. Like, it's so funny because the quality of, like, for some reason, Lando specifically, out of every single driver, his radio is so clear.
Yeah.
And so, like, he talks and he's like, yay. Like, it literally sounds like he's like standing next to you. And then he's like, oh yeah, and like Daniel finished in P5, and they're like, yeah, and he's like, good job everybody. And then Daniel gets on and they're like, that was a P5, like, good job dude, whatever. And they're like, I don't know if you heard, the stands as you came around the corner were screaming, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. And he's like, oh yeah, Lando was in P4, right? And they're like, yeah. It was just such a team weekend.
And like what we needed to see. And it breaks my heart that he's not going to be there next year, even though I know that this car isn't conducive for him. And there was a lot of lucky breaks in what went down this weekend for them.
Oh, exactly. And he knew that. The way he described the race, he was like, you know what? We got lucky, but sometimes you have to make your own luck. And he's like, Lando helped a lot in like making the luck for the team this weekend. And
can we talk about Lando defending Max Verstappen? Okay, we're gonna get into that. Okay. My podium
McLaren is everything to me this weekend. I love them. Big smooches for them again.
Okay. My podium points, my number 3. I couldn't pick between Carlos or Charles because they both did have an amazing race for different reasons. Carlos was working through some major struggles all race. His tires were not working. He was having some rough issues throughout the weekend. And Charles also had an amazing race and some amazing battles with Checo. Was seriously challenging for the front. Just amazing. And neither of them got massively screwed over by their team. So that was a good job. You know, for me, that's going to be a point for Carlos, Charles, and Ferrari. As a whole, just like a little part for Ferrari. Good job. Like a gold star,
Can't believe they didn't wreck the tire strategy. There were many opportunities.
I was shocked.
I know.
I was shocked. So my P2 is Daniel starting in 16th and moving all the way up to 5th with the help of McLaren, and how cute they were. And
him and Lando.
I want to give it to Lando too, but I have to just give it to Daniel for now.
Good. But him and Lando's post-race interview together, they're like talking whatever, and he's like, this result was from like maturity, teamwork, like whatever. And then like the girl's like talking to them. I think it's the blonde girl that we always talk about. What's your name?
Oh, yeah. I really, really like her.
And he goes, let's have a cuddle. He like grabs Lando. Aww. And they're like this, like while they're talking. Yeah. It was just, I'm so proud of them and McLaren, because if we're gonna traumatize all of us by questioning if Daniel will be in the sport next year, at least give us some results for the end of the year, people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and my P1 was Checo having an amazing race, an overall stunning performance, defending like the Mexican Minister of Defense that he is, overcoming a 5-second time penalty and still winning.
Yep.
Snaps, claps, like hats off. What an amazing race for the Mexican driver.
Yes.
Like just phenomenal.
Our dad was very pleased. He like texts me, or no, I'm at breakfast, and he goes, I'm just so happy, like all of our favorites did so good this week, Tess. Because he knows I'm a big Charles and Ferrari fan. And I mean, he goes, I mean, except for Max, obviously, because he knows I like Max, but he was like, Checo
and except for George.
Second? Well, yeah. And Carlos third. He goes, both my favorites are on the podium.
Like, it was a good weekend in the Wright household.
Oh yeah, really good weekend for our dad.
All right, so let's go one more time over who we're giving points to. For my third, it's going to be both Carlos and Charles and Ferrari are getting a point. For my second, Daniel and McLaren are getting a point. And for my first, Checo and Red Bull are getting a point.
For me, McLaren, Daniel, and Lando. Checo and Red Bull. If I could give Charlotte a point, I would. But instead, I'm giving Charles a point. Okay?
That's okay.
If I could give her a point for being so stunning and beautiful, I would.
You can put Charlotte's face in there with just a little heart next to it for podium points this week.
Yeah, love her.
All right, let's move into race weekend recap. I've got a lot of notes to go through. Well, I'm going to try and be as succinct as possible with this because I feel like so many new things happened this weekend. Also, and there is a lot to catch up on.
Lauren's taking the lead on this one because she took a lot better notes than I did. So.
Okay, let's run through this. Starting with free practice 1, we had some updates for the McLaren. I believe only Lando had these updates this weekend. We had a new floor for Alpine, which they did not run in free practice 1, I believe, but I believe they ran it the rest of the weekend. Carlos Sainz, I had a moment in turn 5, almost put it in the wall for a second. It was very cute. His little, I had a moment. Stroll put the back end in the wall, caused a red flag, but he was running in 4th at the time. Aston Martin had a good weekend, and we'll get more into that.
Yeah, happy for
One thing I just want to put out there is that Singapore will punish you for literally any mistake you make on that track. Singapore is grueling, not just because of the heat, not just because of the temperature, not just because of the conditions, but because of how grueling that track is. It's so winding. It's so slow.
Like, they all call it the hardest race of the season for a reason.
Exactly. Carlos once again defied physics and saved it from going into the wall for a second time in FP1. I just don't think the car and him were just on great terms with traction this weekend. Lewis Hamilton led a practice section for the first time this season. So snaps to Lewis. Good job.
I'm
it was
sad
not
that his race
indicative
didn't
of
go
the
the way
rest
he
of the
wanted.
weekend, unfortunately. But also something funny to point out that I actually did not know was that the magnetic underground system for the train system in Singapore can cause issues with the cars, with the F1 cars sometimes.
What?
So they have to like shield the gearboxes and stuff with like anti-magnetizing things.
Oh my gosh.
To
That's
help keep them like
really, I was gonna say cool. It's not good, but it's like really
it's
interesting that
though.
would
It's
like
kind of an
cause
interesting fact.
problems. Yeah.
Yeah. Free practice 2. One of my thoughts was that Alex being back was just a literal miracle. Can we just talk for a second about Alex Albon? Our dad recently had an appendectomy. And he did not have post-surgical complications where he was literally on a ventilator.
No.
How long before dad was able to resume like normal activity? Would you say 2 weeks? He was like out for the count for about 2 weeks.
And it wasn't like full, like 100% ready to go.
Yeah.
So I just don't know how.
Alex Albon being back and ready in 2 weeks' time, back to fighting shape for Singapore.
For the hardest race of the season.
Yeah, one of the hardest races the hardest race of the season was just an absolute miracle. Like it just is a testament to how conditioned they are, how strong, how absolutely insane. Charles, I
do feel sad that he made it possible to be there
and then had a rough race. Yeah. We had some bad luck for Charles in practice, free practice 1 and free practice 2. Ferrari had a lot of time in the garage. I almost said garage.
Garage. Wow, you have been listening to too much commentators
in British or in a British accent.
Garage, where things are getting interesting.
I'm very sorry, everybody. I've just been
in the garage.
Too many people speaking with British accents, and now I'm just going to call it a garage. Right. Getting back on with it. No, so we had bad luck for Charles in practice. Ferrari just spent a lot of time in the garage. Gee.
In the garage.
Ferrari spent a lot of time in the garage this weekend and did not have as much time in practice and in as many laps as they would have wanted. Red Bull also had some issues. I don't think Checo was out for most of free practice 2. Another note I made that we have not talked about yet is McLaren's special edition livery is so cool.
I'm obsessed, and I'm obsessed with the black.
Oh, yes. I was like,
listen,
this is
Ferrari. I understand why we did yellow. I understand also yellow is my favorite color. I understand. But there is no need to make your drivers look like bananas when you can make your drivers look hot, okay? Because they look hot when they wear black, okay? Like, oh my goodness.
It was amazing.
And I love the livery for the car. It's so good. Oh my gosh.
I loved the pink with the little steampunk influences, cyberpunk influences. Sorry. I was
love it.
I'm about it. Everything in the graphic designer in me was so happy.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and if anyone listened to Free Practice 2, I was dying at the commentators explaining oversteer and understeer with a shopping cart analogy in the grocery store. I was dying. I was like, okay, but this is actually slightly accurate.
You're like, oh, that would be helpful to a listener. Got it.
Oh, okay. And now probably the most exciting portion and also kind of scariest portion of FP2 was Pierre Gasly catching on fire in the pit lane.
Oh
and
my gosh.
I don't know if anybody noticed this, but the person that actually put the fire out was an Aston Martin pit crew member, not AlphaTauri.
So I have some things to say about this. We don't see fires a lot anymore. I believe it was actually like electronic pieces that might have done it, is what I heard. Sure.
But he was back out, so I think somebody was saying that it was
like a fluke. It just randomly.
People were saying it was a very weird fluke that happened.
So there's obviously AlphaTauri put out a video from Pierre's view, like right behind Pierre's head, of the guy moving the car, going like he was like his face. he immediately like runs back. And I have a couple things to say. Like, obviously, Pierre got out of the car as fast as he could. Glad it wasn't like some crazy thing. He wasn't in a lot of danger.
Yeah.
But the Aston Martin pit crew, it's one of those things where you're like, the sport is a family. It's not all about like, this is my team. This is my team. It's like they saw like something scary happening and immediately like ran to help. Yeah. He was standing right there and he ran to help. And it's the same like effect as George like running out of his car. There's so much camaraderie between all of it. Obviously, AlphaTauri, like, where was your fire extinguisher?
Yeah, where was your fire extinguisher, AlphaTauri? Because I think we might need to go back over the safety manuals. And it's also important to mention, like, aside from just family, which I do believe is part of what this is, they have very, very, very extensive safety training to be in these garages, because things like this can happen, especially when you're working around engines, fuels, everything like that. So as much as I don't want to say that this is selfish, because it's definitely not selfish of him to like run over there and take care of the fire, something in the AlphaTauri garage catching on fire could in turn lead to the Aston Martin garage catching on fire. But
yeah,
I also equate it kind of to like the first responder type of thing. Not that I'm, equating them to first responders, but it's that health versus flee instinct that naturally kicks in. And it's just really awesome to see something like that happen in real time.
Yeah. And I also
immediately oh no, there's a fire behind this driver's head. Like, let me just put that out really quick.
Also, like, they got there so quick. Pierre wasn't even like out of the car yet. He was like undoing his seatbelts. Like,
yeah. And drivers do, by the way, have to go through drills.
How fast can they get out of the car?
Yeah, how fast can you get out of the car?
I believe before the season starts, it has to be like timed.
Yes. The FIA has to time you getting out of the car, and it has to be under a certain amount of time. Last thought on FP2. Latifi complaining over the radio that people are in his way always cracks me up, because I'm like, Latifi, you are in everyone else's way about 80% of the time.
Get me out of here. Seriously. Like, the fact that he had the audacity, number one, to say that. Number two, after he forced Zhou off the road to crash, he said, yeah, like, I don't know where he came from. I just did not see him in my mirrors. I haven't watched it back yet, but like, yeah, I don't know what happened.
We're talking about for this race?
Yes.
Oh, well, this was in free practice too, but
I know, I'm just letting you know. I have beef with Latifi this weekend for sure.
Do we ever not have beef with Latifi?
That's what I was gonna say. I really have it every weekend, and that's why I'm so excited for the Williams seat to be available next year.
Last practice, FP3, very delayed, very, very wet. A boat actually might have been more ideal than an F1 car. Haas came in with some great memes and jokes about this, with Günther Steiner in the boat. I was a fan. I loved it. All right.
Along the same line as the Canadian Grand Prix.
Yeah. With the delay in FP3, we saw a lot of coverage of, because you'll never guess who was our person on the pit wall this weekend. You'll never guess. It was Christian Horner again, in case you were wondering. It's usually, I feel like every 2 races and we have Christian back again. I'm like, can we talk to somebody else? I'd really love to talk to somebody else.
Lauren is still slightly on her anti-Christian Horner campaign.
Look, Ginger Spice's husband, I can't forgive you for what you said. Anyways, I'm a Scorpio. I hold grudges, okay? Revenge is sweet.
Also, really quick side note, this is so random, but the fact that was a statement that he made, when I know for a fact the people who loved Daniel at Red Bull, ginormous amount were women.
Oh yeah.
Like, we can't play this game, Christian. You can't afford this game because you will lose fans because, like, it's just insulting. I don't know. You can't insult like a third of your demographic because it really, like, I feel like is growing to that point. Also, like, dependent on the team. Like, let's be honest, McLaren has like a ginormous female fan base. So does Ferrari. And so I just think like the teams, yeah, they can't afford to be making comments like that, thinking those things.
Could not agree more. So they used a lot of this time to air an interview that Christian did where he talked all about the rumors that Red Bull has exceeded the cost cap. If I'm going to be honest, as a fan of this sport, I really don't care about this. I know that might be a hot take. Like, I know I should care. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to hear Christian Horner go in an interview and be the most defensive person I have ever seen for 10 minutes about a cost cap and make more and more shade towards Toto Wolff. I'm like, dude, can we stop? So, I don't care.
I understand that it's like, oh, we need to check that that's actually how much they spent, whatever. Mm-hmm. It does not need to become public until there is a verdict, I would say. Well,
so this is where Christian is annoyed, is because he's saying that this information isn't public at all. He's like, so, I have no idea where Toto is getting these numbers
Toto
from.
and Mattia are having things to say. The top 3 teams, obviously, they are coming for each other's throats.
Of course, which they always do.
Exactly.
It's exactly what they always do. We've seen
as
this
much as we're going to support Toto Drive to Survive
is going to blow this completely out of proportion. I'm not looking forward to this portion of it. I think this is stupid.
I heard WTF1, if anyone knows what that is. They were talking about this and they were like, it's almost like Netflix owns Formula One. Like, I feel like Netflix is like puppet stringing this whole season. Like, they're seriously, like, "Ooh, this would be great for TV." Mm-hmm. It's just that dramatic.
It is.
So,
and don't get me wrong,
traumatizing to relive on GTS.
lot of Formula One seasons are dramatic. Last season, so dramatic.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow Netflix focused on all the wrong drama from the entire season, which was stupid, but they couldn't build a drama arc around Max because he refused to participate. So, sucks to suck, Netflix.
Max will be participating in this season on Drive to Survive.
Interesting.
Because I believe he came to an agreement with them. They signed some sort of thing where it's
look, like, you can't slander me. Okay.
That's the thing, is I think it was like a defamation or slander sort of like contract where it's like, you cannot take things out of context. You cannot make me look bad on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Yeah. But Christian blames Toto. There's a part of me that's like, sometimes with their little relationship, I truly feel like Toto Wolff is the older brother and Christian Horner is the younger brother. And Toto just does things just to piss Christian off. He's like, what's gonna get a rise out of Christian today? Let's piss him off. I'm like, he 100%. Has to do this
because Toto
his
just
own entertainment, right?
He sets it on fire and then he just goes like this.
He just sits there and watches it burn. I'm like, I love it because Christian digs his own hole.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
Oh, I think I respect it because I am also a little bit that way as an oldest sibling. I'm like, nah, I'd do that. I would. Damn it. I would do that. I'm like, respect Toto, but also like, but respect. Christian just acts like a younger brother, and it's so entertaining to watch him get all flustered and spend 10 minutes on television saying it's just completely untrue. These allegations are completely baseless and this would never, whatever. And I'm like, okay,
there's
cool.
like a couple reasons that like I understand. Like Red Bull as a team in the sport, I feel like has been criticized in a way. They are a energy drink company. Like, they are very separate and in their own lane when it comes to that. Like, there isn't really anything like Red Bull as a company in Formula One. There's nothing else that really compares. And I think that in that way, people kind of come for their necks a tiny bit. But
maybe, but
I also do think that Christian Horner is coming off like, Mom, he hit me. Oh my gosh, he hit me, but like he hit Toto first. Like he started it.
He's pulling you. You used to do that all the time.
Like he started it and then Toto like pushed him back and then he was like, I can't believe you did that. I'm gonna tell mom.
But I feel like Matteo Binotto is like the youngest child, where he's just
kind of steps back. He just
steps back, but sometimes
I'm not gonna mention what team, but there's a team.
He's like, listen, I'm just gonna I'm not gonna throw like wood on the fire, but I might throw a match or maybe a newspaper at it,
just blow some hay.
That's Matteo. Oh my gosh, they are
blowing a little.
They're like siblings. It's like you, me, and Josie.
100%.
This is hilarious. See, this is why I find the whole thing comical. And I also love to see how people on the internet get so riled up about it. They're like, oh, Toto Wolff's the worst. Oh, Christian Horner's the worst. Oh, Matteo Binotto's the worst. I'm like, y'all aren't just using this for like, this is stupid entertainment value at this point. Like, I'm over it. I don't want it in the middle of FP3, but I'm like, this is stupid.
The only principal that I am here for in the sport, that I care about hearing from, that I want to look at, that I want to talk to, is Günther Steiner. Everybody else does not need airtime. I care about drivers and Günther Steiner. I love Günther Steiner.
Wait, I like Jost Capito too.
I do like him too. Yeah.
He's funny. Okay, and my last thought for FP3, once they finally got out, this cracked me up because it's just, once again, we're ending on a Latifi note. Latifi did not drive fast enough to get energy into his tires and almost put it in the wall.
I can't do this anymore.
He's complaining about energy in my tires, and one of the commentators like, yeah, I don't know that he's generating enough speed to really put energy into those tires. I'm like, call him out.
Tell him he's slow. Do it. No, like genuinely, I don't know how much more. I don't know if I'll survive the next however many races are left, because every weekend I'm like, Latifi, what are you gonna do to me? Either you're gonna help somebody I don't want helped, or like, so obviously, like, I don't say everything I always say on here, but one of my sayings that I literally never stop saying is, how could you do this to me? And that is how I feel towards Nicholas Latifi. How could you do this to me? How could you exist?
Accurate. Okay, qualifying was what still started on inters with George and Lewis out promptly at the green light, waiting at the end. Schumacher got out of Q1 into Q2, and we were so happy about it. Aston Martin looked really good in Q2. Nail-biting strategies for Mercedes in Q2, resulting with Russell out in Q2. I don't know.
This was not Mercedes weekend.
Listen, it was not. As a Russell fan, watching qualifying was just painful, and they were talking about it afterwards. Russell didn't necessarily make any obvious mistakes. Like, he didn't make obvious mistakes in his lap. He just had no grip. So he was having a really hard time firing up those tires. Lewis did too, but he was just making better use of it. We had some bad luck for Seb in Q2. The slicks did not pay off for him. Q3, we had Max having to pull out because of low fuel.
I just, like, what? I don't know what they were doing. I don't know. I don't understand. The abandoning of that lap was confusing.
I'm
shocking.
Assuming it's because of low fuel, but
that's what people say.
Yeah, but I also, just don't. Was there supposed to be a different strategy to this? My other theory is, and hear me out on this because this is probably just a bunch of BS.
Okay.
Red Bull's engine provider is Honda. Honda is a Japanese company. Next week, we have the Japanese Grand Prix. Red Bull said, we don't want you to win the Constructors' Championship here in Singapore. We want you to win it in Japan. Or the Drivers' Championship. We want you to win it in Japan. So that's what we're going to need you to do.
There were like a million factors that had to happen for him to win. Not that many, though. But like, Checo had to finish at like a certain place Charles had to finish like under a certain place, like to get a certain amount of points. It was all of these little factors that were completely possible if Max had started the race at pole.
Yeah.
Because as we saw, Checo started in second and had a great first lap, first get off, and it was so good. And so like if Max was there, I think this could have been an easy race for Max and things would have looked very differently. If he hadn't won, he would have been in a significantly bigger lead. But I don't know if he can win in Japan now because he finished so low. I don't know.
I don't know. We shall see. We shall see. I haven't done the math on it yet.
I haven't either, but I kind of get what you're saying though. That would be crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you. But I understand your vision.
Yeah, you see the vision. Okay.
I see the vision.
Last note on qualifying was epic drive for Lando, Hamilton, Alonso, and Checo as well. Great laps all around from all of them. Great laps from Ferrari too, but just those four stood out to me. All right, let's get started on this race because there is a lot to cover. First factoid. George Russell starting from the pit lane and for taking a new power unit. So it seems like there may have been something wrong with that Mercedes. And they just kind of said, you know what, we're just gonna, George, we might just take a little bit of an L on you this weekend. So sorry about that.
George had a bit of an L weekend, but maybe they're just saving it all up for Japan.
Maybe. I really hope so. Gosh, I hope so. All right. That start was hectic. Just the start of that race was so hectic. There was so much spray, terrible visibility.
And it was just like, if you guys could see my hands, if you're watching the video format, this is exactly how the first lap went. Like all the,
it looks like a game of chicken.
Oh my gosh, the order was shifting like every single turn. It was like Max was in front of someone, behind someone. Max was in front of someone, behind someone, back and forth. And it was like Lando was racing for his life in the first lap, okay?
And good for him because it paid
Lando
off.
raced for his life this whole race.
Okay. Yeah. Also, Vettel had a great start. It was so nice to see a little battle between Max and Seb in those first couple laps. Oh,
I know.
Latifi once again then was oblivious to those around him and ends Zhou Guanyu's race on lap 8.
I wonder if he has mirrors.
I don't think he knows how to use them, but he does have them. Maybe they're just fake.
Williams like forgets to put them on. Maybe they need a cleanup.
Maybe. Oh.
Maybe he needs ginormous ones.
FIA introducing larger mirrors next season is specifically for Latifi.
Yeah, who won't be in.
Yep.
who will not have a seat. Sorry, bud.
On lap 11, I made the note that Lando was having a great race. Fernando Alonso out on lap 21. This was his 350th race start. It was very sad. This brought out a virtual safety car, which brought George Russell into the pits. He was the first on slicks, and he looked like he was ice skating out there. If there's one thing George Russell will do, it's go on slicks when it's not ready, okay? But also, really quick on the note of Fernando Alonso, 350th race start. I believe that makes him the longest running Formula One driver ever. It is.
That is so cool. It's so cool, especially because we know he'll be here next year. He has to see a contract signed. It's just crazy to me.
He just said, this is what I love doing, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I hope we see till he's like 50, driving everybody crazy. I'm serious.
I do too, but at the same time, I'm like, can you give your seat up to somebody else? Because there's rookies I'd really like to see.
Let Nick DeVries in. Let him in.
Oh my God. The next thing that happened was Alex drove head on into a barrier, then drove around the track without his front wing.
Alabano.
Before eventually making it into the pits and them saying, no, unfortunately, there is too much damage. You can't go back out. It was very sad.
Well.
At this point, it was when I put F1 on ice in all bold into my notes. Then we had Alex out. So Alex out in lap 27 after too much damage. Ocon was out in lap 27. I felt like I was watching Le Mans, like endurance racing. It was just like battle of the fittest. Who can make it across the finish line?
You get a DNF.
Like,
you get a DNF.
You get a DNF. Yeah. I was dying. Lewis was being so cheeky with Carlos under the virtual safety car. Oh my gosh. Lando and Max got spicy with each other as soon as that virtual safety car was over, and even during. But it
the elbows.
They were out. I was like, dang.
And you know who I'm the most proud of for having their elbows out this race? Daniel Ricciardo.
Yes.
Come on, Honey Badger.
He killed it. The Honey Badger was back. And
he was here.
Was beautiful.
He was angry.
Yeah. Which is adorable because he was so smiley and happy all weekend.
I know.
Then we had Lewis into the wall at turn 7 on lap 33 with a damaged front wing. We had a lot of pit stops on lap 36. Yuki was out at turn 10 on lap 36, resulting
really quick,
in a safety car.
Comment on Lewis is he pulled a Stroll, but he didn't complete it. He like Stroll in Baku, he hit the wall and kept going, but he didn't hit it again. So
yes. So
he's winning.
Half Stroll. Yeah,
half Stroll. More like a 7 Baku.
Yeah, a little bit more like a 7 Baku. There we go. Yuki was out at lap 10, resulting in a safety car. So there were a lot of pit stops on lap 36. Or sorry, not lap 10. Turn 10, lap 36. Lando Norris had a good stop. So did Danny Rick. McLaren had a fantastic pit stop that put them both in good position with Daniel Ricciardo on softs. McLaren took really good advantage of Alpine being out of this race with both Ocon and Alonso. Lewis was really good about owning up to his mistake of hitting the wall, like, sorry guys, like that was on me. This is where I don't understand people who are like, Toto Wolff will make any excuse to make Lewis Hamilton sleep better at night. Like, Lewis Hamilton never owns up to his mistakes, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, dude, he literally owned up to it over the radio, live television during the race. Like, what?
Like,
that's literally part of Mercedes, like, business, like, culture is owning up to your mistakes. This is where I'm like, your hate's a little unfounded here. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to keep going. Because so much happened. After Yuki's crash, there were only 14 cars left in the race. Yuki looked absolutely crushed. Literally, like, the most demoralized Yuki I think I've ever seen.
He was just like, sorry, guys. That was all me.
It made me want to cry. I was like, Yuki.
Also, I was really sad that both of our Asian drivers were out in one of our 2 races in Asia. Also, because that was, I believe, the closest Zhou would have gotten to a home Grand Prix.
It is, yeah.
And that's bad news for me.
I know. Did you see Zhou's family in the garage, too? They were so
Don't even say that to me, Lauren.
I'm sorry.
I was about to talk about his new haircut, but his family, come on.
Okay, and
Lauren is trying to make me cry.
Back to safe territory without Tess's tears. After Yuki's crash, we had a switch to 2-hour timing. If you're unaware, if it does not look like the Grand Prix will be completed in the prescribed amount of laps, they will, or under a 2-hour time limit, they will switch it to a 2-hour time limit, essentially.
So then
the clock just starts counting down like it does in FP1 or qualifying.
Yeah. So instead of having this many laps out of 61, I believe it was, they switched it to, a timer. A little. So clock.
Max had a bad lock up soon after that. Russell was up to 12, had a run in with Mick. Unfortunately, Russell and Mick both had a puncture from the little sidewall kiss that they had. No further investigation stated by the FIA, just a racing incident. Both of them were, Mick was defending for his life there, and Russell was trying to get ahead. We had a great battle between Charles Leclerc and Checo. Oh, there was so many great battles in this race. We had DRS enabled with 27 minutes left of the race. Everyone was saying that was a little too late. I think it was a little bit too late. I think there really should have been more DRS, but unfortunate. This soon after this is where we get George saying Schumacher is driving like it's the race of his life. Crikey. Like, and I've seen mixed comments about this on the internet. And I want to chat about this because this might be controversial.
Lauren and I have a very different opinion than a lot of people, I think.
A lot of people are saying that this was like really crass of George and really like unsportsmanlike, and he was making fun of Mick. And I really don't see it that way.
We disagree. I think if you look at George's displays of character in general, but especially this season, I see this as a comment being, it's the same thing as us calling Checo the Minister of Defense. It is just George saying, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to pass him. This is the race of Mick's life, apparently, because he is defending like nobody's business right now. I think that that's the way he said it. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to critique Mick. Oh, you're going to have bad things to say. You're making fun
they're
of
like,
him.
oh, Russell, you forgot where you came from. You forgot whatever. And I'm like,
exactly. And I don't
really
think
don't
so.
see that. And even if, right, even if there was a little jab at Mick there, you know, even if this was a bit of a spicier comment from George, the other thing I want to say to that is, have you never played a professional, or sorry, not have you ever played a professional sport before? Have you ever played a competitive sport before, or been in a competitive environment, a sporting environment? Because trash talk, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
That is the most classy form of trash talk I've ever heard.
It is a complimentary trash talk.
Listen, this is like that's what we're critiquing. And the thing that really got me going was people calling George Russell classless and how he has no class ever.
Like,
and he's
we
the worst.
cannot even play that game.
I'm like, I'm sorry. What?
Yeah.
Man literally ended his own race to go help Zhou Guanyu after a scary crash. Like, he's proven time and time again that he has so much class. And that's where I was kind of like, you really need to
George
calm
going
down.
and sitting by Daniel when we all know Daniel just got the news that he does not have a seat.
Yep.
It's like, there is nothing about George Russell that says to me like, oh, he was literally completely saying rude things about Mick. No, to me, it was frustration.
Yeah, it's like this competitiveness mixed with frustration where he's like, damn, Schumacher is defending like this is the race of his life. Like, how am I supposed to get past him? Exactly. I'm like, why? What? I don't know. I also have had to decide that with people on the internet, they want to be angry about something and they'll find anything to be angry about. And because George is actually kind of a decently likable person, in my opinion, they want to just attack him in any way they can. And they're like, how dare you say this? How dare you say this when Mick doesn't have a seat and he's not making $5 million a year like you? I'm like, no, he's making $1 million a year. And unfortunately,
which is still a lot of money.
Which is still a lot of money. And he has not signed a contract yet. And yes, like the commentators were saying, like, this is the race of Schumacher's life. He's trying to prove that he belongs in Formula One. And like, we don't honestly know if that's George making that
he doesn't want to be at Haas. We don't know.
Maybe George making that comment though over the radio, if anything, in my opinion, says Mick. I think it boosts Mick because he's like, I can't get past him. Dang. Like holy cow.
He is defending so well. Blah, blah, blah. I'm stuck. I'm stuck behind him in my Mercedes. And I have been in a top 5 finish for almost every single race this year. I'm stuck behind Mick. To me, and also we have no idea whether Mick is choosing to not sign a contract with Haas or not. We don't know if he is being offered one or not. We don't have that information. So I think that it's unfair to speculate like, oh my gosh, Mick doesn't have a seat. You can't say things like that. It's good for Mick's career, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we don't know why Mick doesn't have a seat. So that's like an unfair judgment on George. Sorry.
I agree. Well, and the other thing I'm going to say is a lot of people are like, you ruined Mick's race. You ruined Schumacher's race. I'm like, bruh, have you never watched Formula One before?
Listen, George's race was ruined too.
Do you know how many, like, it ruined George's own race? Like,
it's the sport. Like,
it's
I don't know
sport.
what you want.
Hamilton and Verstappen have ruined each other's races multiple times.
That's basically all they did last year.
Ferrari has ruined both Charles and Carlos's races.
Ferrari has ruined their own races.
Literally.
It's the sport. Like, that's just Nicholas Latifi has ruined and helped a lot of people's races.
Exactly. It's just the sport. It's how it works. Yeah. Anyways. All right. After that, I think we saw Russell out on softs just to get that fastest lap, take it away from Checo. We had a nice 3-way fight between our world champions, Verstappen, our 3 world champions that are on the grid. We had Verstappen, Hamilton, and Vettel all in a nice little 3-way battle for, I actually don't remember what place. It was probably 5th at the time. 4th or 5th.
Wish Fernando could have been in there, but he already DNF'd.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. Lance actually performed well this week, and I will give him that. I know we talked a little bit of shit on him last week, but he did have a good race, and also did Vettel.
Seb had his back.
Seb did have his back.
It was a good result for the team, and Seb made sure of that.
Yes. Brilliant win for Perez, who also received Driver of the Day. Great race for McLaren. Rough night for Russell, Mick, and Hamilton, and Verstappen, and a 5-second penalty for Perez for not being within 10 car lengths of the safety car. However, this may have been the race of Checo Perez's life, and it was phenomenal. All right, let's jump into Pop Culture Princess really fast. We know this is going to be a long episode, you guys, so we will rank this out for you as quickly as possible.
Really quick. George, dressed as a very classy British man. I will be sending that to Lauren. Says, Schumacher's defending like it's the race of his life. Crikey. George Russell, national British. This one's funny, which also insinuates that Mick was mad. But it's Michael Schumacher storming. And it says, Mick on his way to have a chat with Russell. Oh my gosh. The sun from my window is like going crazy right now. Sorry. Latifi after making sure that he won't finish P10 today or P20. Oscar watching both Alpines fucking explode. Little evil smile on his face.
In his McLaren suit. I'm dying.
Oh, this one. No one. Checo at a street circuit. This is my town. Also, this one. Trade. I receive pole position. You receive race win. That, unfortunately, is the story of Charles this whole season. Oh, last one. Name a more iconic duo. Kevin Magnussen and the orange and black. Very. K-Mag's got a weird relationship with it. Okay.
Oh, he does.
So those
rough
were the
weekend for Haas.
But yeah. Feel for him. Yeah, that's kind of the wrap up of the memes. Those were just the quick couple we had. I know this is a really long episode, but there were some good memes.
There were some great memes. We will repost some of our favorites on Twitter story. I will be sure to superimpose these memes into the video format of this if you want to give that a watch. You can also see the sun from Tess's window making her look like she's telling a scary story. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Grid Sisters podcast, where we went into all things Singapore Grand Prix. We will see you next time in Japan. We
ready for Yuki's home race.
We are so ready for Yuki's home race. In the meantime, take care of yourself. Drink some water, eat your vegetables, take a nap.
Go for a walk.
Yep. If you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel or our podcast, be sure to do that. Leave us a thumbs up on our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Grid Sisters. We will see you next week. Bye, you guys.
Bye.